Welcome to the March 2019 meeting of Sandwell Council. The meeting will be webcast live, allowing people to view the meeting via the Council website. We do not film the public gallery. The press and any member of the public can film the meeting, make an audio recording, take photographs or blog and tweet during the meeting. Can I ask if anyone is intending to film the meeting? Yes. You can only film the meeting. You are not allowed to film members of the public sitting in the public gallery. Please avoid causing any disruption to the meeting. If any member of the public objects to being recorded, this is your opportunity to leave the meeting. Members, if you wish to speak, please indicate clearly. I will call on members to speak in order. Can I remind you that before you speak, you will need to switch on your microphone and wait until your picture appears on the large screens. When you have finished speaking, please switch off your microphone. Agenda 1, apologies. Do we have any... Chief Executive, have you received any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've received apologies from Councillor Actor, Councillor Sue Crumpton, Councillor Dr Crumpton, Councillor Heavican, Councillor Roger Horton, Councillor Rollins, Councillor Worsey, Councillor David Hozell, Councillor Tranter and Councillor Yvonne Davis, who may be able to join us a little later.
Are there any other apologies for absence? Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Can I ask the Chief Executive to read any declarations he has received?
Madam Mayor, I haven't received any declarations of interest in advance of the meeting.
Does any member have any other declarations they need to declare? No? Agenda item number 3, minutes of previous meetings. The minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 15th of January 2019 are before you for confirmation as a correct record. Are these minutes agreed? Agenda item number 4, Mayor's announcements. Could we please give a warm welcome and use congratulations to the newly elected members and deputy members of the Youth Parliament. Over 6,000 young people in Sandwell voted for them. They are Mahmood Suraj, Steve Nemo, Sahana Khatun and Josh Jordan. This is the... This is the first time in 5 years that the UKIP process has taken place. If any councillors or MPs would like to meet with young people to share their manifestos, this would be welcomed. Councillor Hackett, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we could just repeat the names again, so I think they might want to just wave who they are. Mahmood, do you want to wave? Steve, Savannah and Josh. Okay, I mean, welcome. Myself and the Deputy Mayor, Carol Galt, was at the event a few weeks ago, and we probably need to mention the others there were 8 people who stood, and the 4 who weren't here tonight, but I'd like to pay congratulations to the other 4 as well. And as me and Carol said on the night, you know, that they're a credit to their families, they're a credit to the schools that they're from. And the Mayor has just said, you know, it's been 5 years since we last done this, you know, far too long in time. And over 6,000 young people took part, voting at schools and youth clubs. And myself and Carol on the night said that we wanted you to come to full council so we could all congratulate you. So I look forward to working with all of you at a national level, a regional level and a local level. And we will set something up where you can meet with councillors and maybe bring forward some proposals that you've come up with during your time in office. I also need to mention that there's a former deputy member who is now a councillor in this council chamber, and that's Wasim Ali. And I know, Wasim, you'd like to say a few words, wouldn't you?
Thank you, Councillor Hackett. Well, just want to say congratulations to you all. I know exactly what it's like to be sitting there. The election process you went through, or the whole process of getting involved in youth politics. It's especially important that we have young people at the heart of what we do. And I look forward to working with you all. If I can be of any assistance, please feel free to either drop me a message on Twitter and Facebook, because that's how it is nowadays. And I just want to thank the council, really, for getting this very important initiative back up and running to ensure that young people are at the heart of what we do at this council. Thank you.
January and February tend to be a little quieter for engagement, which is welcomed after the busyness of Remembrance and Christmas. It gives my staff the time to reflect and build for continued success for the year ahead. The Deputy Mayor and I have attended 23 events, between us taking part in 2 citizens' events at Highfields, West Bromwich, and many more of these are booked in for the mayoral diary for the forthcoming months. I officially opened the new Thomas Cook Discovery Centre in Albury, which I am sure many people will visit to escape the cold and wet weather we normally experience this time of year. However, even the weather has been somewhat of a surprise. I also opened TMP Solutions, who relocated from outside the borough, bringing its base to Wednesbury, which is great news for Sandwell, helping to boost employment and regeneration of the borough. Many of you will remember footballer Cyril Regis, who became an honorary freeman of the borough and was bestowed the honour in the council chamber. In mid-January, almost a year to the day of his passing, I had the honour of attending the tram naming event for Cyril at Wednesbury Tram Station and West Bromwich Albion Football Ground. This event was a fitting tribute to Cyril, and I was very honoured to share the special occasion with his family and friends. Another poignant event attended was Holocaust Memorial Day at Highfields, West Bromwich. Holocaust Memorial Day is a day to respect and honour the memory of the victims of the Holocaust genocide and of those who survived. The event was very well attended and is going from strength to strength each year. On a happy note, I was delighted to visit 2 special Sandwell ladies who celebrated their 100th birthdays. I shared a couple of lovely hours reminiscing and talking about their wonderful experiences and memories. My staff at the Big House continue to work very hard to ensure my term of office is a great success and are currently busy organising civic events. So can I ask that you all lend your support and attendance where possible. And lastly, I have been asked to draw your attention to the staff you would have seen on the way in tonight, handing out leaflets about child sexual exploitation, or CSE, as it is referred to in short. Child sexual exploitation is a terrible crime, and as councillors, we all have a duty to keep our young people safe from harm as part of our corporate parenting role. I would ask you all to have a look at the information you have been given, and please raise awareness with parents, carers and young people when you are out and about and in your wards, particularly around Monday 18th of March, which is National CSE Awareness Day. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, petitions. This is the opportunity for any member of the Council to submit a petition of a strategic nature to the Council. I have not been notified of any petitions in advance. Does any member have a petition which raises strategic policy issues or which are of borough-wide significance that they wish to submit to the Council? No? Moving on to agenda item number 6, the election of leader. Council has been provided with a report seeking the election of a new leader of the Council. Before I invite nominations, I think it is appropriate that I take this opportunity on behalf of the Council to thank Councillor Ealing for his many years of service as leader of Sandwell Council and Cabinet member. Local government has faced many challenges over recent years, and Councillor Ealing, with councillors in this chamber, have helped this council effectively meet their challenges. The council has achieved many successes during his tenure as leader, and it is only right that Councillor Ealing's role in helping achieving that success is recognised. So on behalf of the council, thank you for your efforts and commitment to this council during your time as leader of the council. Moving on to recommendation, I invite a nomination for the election of a new leader of the Council. Councillor Preece.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In my capacity as Secretary of the Labour Group and on behalf of the Labour Party in Sandwell, I would like to move Councillor Steve Trow be elected leader of the Council. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I formally second the resolution moved by Councillor Liam Preece.
All in favour, can I have a show of hands, please? Okay. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No. I declare that Councillor Trow has been elected leader of the Council. Could you please take your seat at the diocese? Councillor Trow, can I invite you to say a few words?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Well, thank you, members. I'm very honoured and rather humbled to become leader of Sandwell Council. I don't intend to make a long speech, but I do want to echo the words of Madam Mayor in thanking my predecessor, Councillor Ealing, for all his many years of dedicated service, not only as leader, but also for all the years he's so expertly managed the Council's finances and resources. It's thanks to Councillor Ealing working with successive finance directors that this council is still in such a strong position, with many other councils who increasingly struggle to maintain even an adequate level of service for their communities. Unlike many of our neighbours, Sandwell is in a much stronger position than that. The Bill of Health we've recently received following the latest LGA peer group review confirms
that this council is consistently focused on what really matters to the people and the communities of Sandwell, and is continuing to move forward with confidence and at pace. As leader, I'll be inheriting the leadership of a justifiably confident team of members and of senior staff, who I know will all be committed to the ambitions now set out in Sandwell's vision for 2030, a vision shared with all of our key partners, with the health and the education sectors, with businesses, with voluntary organisations, and not least, with local communities all across our 6 towns. There's much to do, with much to be achieved, and I will look forward to your support on that journey. Thank you.
Moving to recommendation 2 in the report, I invite Councillor Trout to confirm the name of the statutory deputy leader and his cabinet members and their portfolios.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to confirm the continuation of Councillor Saida Khatoon as the statutory deputy leader. I'm also happy to confirm the continuation of the current members, the current portfolios of the cabinet members and their present incumbents. The cabinet portfolio which I held for the position of cabinet member for culture and core services, I will continue with until the end of the current municipal year. I'm intending to review our executive arrangements during that period, and will be bringing forward any changes at the annual meeting in May.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Trout. Does Council agree to note these details? Moving now to the last recommendation in the report, I invite Council to confirm the appointment of the new leader of the Council to the committees, panels, outside bodies and groups as detailed in Appendix 1 and 2 to the report. All in favour, can I have a show of hands? Okay. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Agenda item number 7, written questions. Standing order number 6 allows members to ask questions of myself, the leader, cabinet members, committee chairs or other lead members. I have had no notice of any questions for this meeting. Agenda item number 8, Council Finances 2019 to 20 to 21-22. This report provides details of the 2019-20 net expenditure level for the Council based on the final local government financial settlement and sets the Council tax for 2019 to 2020. May I invite the Leader of the Council to present the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The 2019-20 budget report before you today represents the last year in a 4-year strategic financial plan that has successfully protected key frontline services in the face of savage cuts by government. Elsewhere in the country, for example, unlike Sandwell, more than 75% of other councils have now stopped their weekly bin collections, and more than 1 million people now have their bins collected only every 3 weeks. The last 9 years have been an incredibly difficult time for councils, central government funding for local government has been cut by 40% since 2010. And councils like Sandwell, especially councils like Sandwell, have been hit hardest and have been targeted for more than our fair share of those cuts. At the same time, we've also had to manage a big increase in demand for our services as years of austerity have taken their toll on many of the people who live and work here. Across the country, 500 libraries have closed, including almost 130 libraries in the last year alone. Official figures show that, similarly, 500 children's centres have been closed, although independent reports do suggest that that's probably an underestimate, and the figure is likely to be double that at around 1,000 children's centres in England. When those services close, they almost never reopen, and there's an immediate effect on some of the most vulnerable and youngest children that we all owe a future to, whose life chances are wiped out. None of that has happened in Sandwell. In Sandwell, we've managed to maintain our crucial frontline facilities for local communities, and this budget continues to protect those services for the coming year. The budget report proposes a 3.99% increase in council tax in order to achieve a balanced budget for the year, which is in line with what we projected in last year's budget, and which includes the extra 1% which would allow us to raise specifically for adult social care. I say we're allowed to raise. In fact, the truth of it is we're required under government assumptions to raise it, and therefore it is included in the 3.99%. Over the next year, that means that council tax equates to an increase of under £1 per week for most people in Sandwell, between 69p and 92p a week. Any increase, of course, is not an easy choice, and which is why we're also, later on in this agenda, reconfirming our commitment to protect the most vulnerable people with up to 100% discount in council tax. That item will be coming later. Even after all this, after this increase, council tax levels in Sandwell continue to be well below the national average. As is usual each year, you'll see from the report that the report's recommendations are set out in rather technical terms, as required by law, and the Mayor will soon be calling for a named vote on those recommendations. But before we do that, I just want to say a quick few words about some of the specific proposals contained in this report and on our longer-term plans. The budget for next year continues to protect the things that are important to the people of Sandwell, our libraries, children's centres, green flag parks and the weekly bin connections. And we'll do this while continuing to maintain a reasonably healthy but modest level of reserves. Unlike in other councils, our budget for 2019-20 doesn't rely on us having to raid our reserves to fund basic services. The report also includes our Treasury management strategy, where we're continuing our policy of low-risk investments, and our capital strategy, which provides for 318 million of expenditure over the next 4 years, including the provision of our contribution towards the Commonwealth Games Aquatics Centre. The report also contains some detail about our plans for the next 2 years, though these are likely to change, as the government has as yet failed to make any announcements or to give any indications about local government funding beyond the coming financial year. We are, however, committed and determined to invest in new council housing. It's been interesting to see the stories in the press about the important role that new build council housing can play in the housing challenges that are faced across the country. Of course, no one needed to tell us that council housing can play an important role. And over the last 2 years, we have launched the second biggest increase in new build council housing in the country. But we can do more, and I look forward to receiving proposals during the year that will double the scale of our house building programme. And wherever possible, my intention will be that those new houses will be built on brownfield sites that we've reclaimed. But it's not just about spending the money, it's also about how it's spent and where. And that's why I'm particularly interested in the work that's been done at Preston Council and how they've looked at the idea of social value and community wealth building, and how this can be used, how public procurement can be used to help to tackle local inequality and increase wealth in their local communities by keeping the profits and the jobs local. So this will be a major focus of work that we'll be looking at over the next few months. And finally, I just want to commend the work of so many of our staff across all of our council services who have been so closely involved in developing this budget, and to thank scrutiny members for their careful and detailed examination of the plans. The budget you have in front of you continues Sandwell's tradition of strong budget management and sets out an ambitious programme for the coming years. I move the report.
Are there any questions from the floor? No? Oh. Councillor Hughes.
Madam Mayor, it is a comment in my position as Chair of Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board. I hope you'll allow me to make comments as opposed to a question. I would like to say that from a scrutiny point of view, we've had ample opportunity to analyse and question the budget inside out, indeed as we do throughout the year during our budget monitoring. We've had full opportunity to question the officers in depth in each service area and to make comments and suggestions for improvement. We find the officers, directors and indeed the portfolio holders eager to implement changes that we suggest, and they listen to us carefully. As critical friends, which is what we are, we don't only question, we also commend and also point out where things are doing well. And I think it would be remiss of us not to compliment the position that we find ourselves in with regard to the finances, the budget for this year, and indeed the budget for the medium term, in the medium term financial plan. Indeed, as the new leader has said, we are the envy of our peers both near and far. In addition, these budgets are backed up by concise, informative and very punchy business plans which contain outputs that we can measure and which the scrutiny board will be able to look at even easier in terms of delivery. They capture the essence of where Sandwell is going and how it's going to reach its 2030 vision. I think I'm going to repeat some of the things that the new leader has said, because faced against the draconian cuts that we've had from this Tory government and the predecessor government with the Liberal Democrats, that they basically were keeping out, as you say, libraries, youth services are still active. How many local authorities around us still have youth services? And you hear the moans from boroughs in London that have had youth services just bereft, that they're not there, and they blame that for the problems they're having on the streets. We have leisure facilities which are the envy of our neighbours again, and we're looking forward to a world-class leisure centre. As you say, we're going to be the second biggest house builder in the country. We still provide a weekly bin collection, which again has been commented on the television only in the last week because of the problems being faced by our near neighbour Birmingham. And we go on to the things that we do for the poorest in our community. There's one agenda item coming up in a minute, and that's the provision of a council tax reduction scheme. There are very few local authorities in the country that provide that. Not only that, we still provide council welfare provision, which the government kindly took away in the form of the social fund a few years ago. These are things that where we're looking after the people that find themselves in difficulties, and we're providing this. And as the new leader has said, all of this has been recognised, but both the budget and the service provision had been recognised by the LGA peer review 12 months ago, and then ratified in their visit literally weeks ago. I think at the same time we can't be complacent, and I've no doubt that Brexit or not, things are not going to get any easier anytime soon, no matter what Theresa May has to say about things getting better. I think it would also be remiss of me not to comment on the fact that we are in this position today because of a portfolio holder of finance that for probably a decade or more has made sure that this local authority is stable, is actually not backward looking, not looking at the budget that we've got today, but is forward looking and projecting to the future. And I think without the former leader and his careful hands on the tiller with the budget, we'd be in a much worse place. And I'd like to commend the former leader for the efforts he's put into that. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I am delighted that Sandwell continues to invest in its citizens with building houses across the borough. Greets Green and Ling is the ward that I represent, and they continue, the residents there, to benefit from new housing. We need more. But all too often, older people or people who become disabled due to illness or accidents can no longer remain in their homes, mainly due to the structural constraints of how the house is built. So as a result, people who could remain in the community independently with limited support ends up having to be cared for in a residential or nursing home. At times, a simple solution would have been large door frames, as an example, to accommodate wheelchairs or wheelchair users, a washroom downstairs, space for downstairs living. So my question is, can Sandwell MBC Champion Homes truly fit for the future, truly and instantly built for people to grow old in with limited upheaval when frailty and sickness happens as a byproduct of old age, for older people to remain valuable citizens in their communities? This forward thinking will, in the long term, save on funding from social care and expense of adaptations at a time of crisis, sometimes blocking hospital beds. I'll be grateful for your thoughts, Leader, on that.
Are you going to answer? There's some more to ask questions. Councillor Amelia.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is not a question, it's a comment on the library services that was outlined in Councillor Freer's report. I'm the Chairman of the Federation of Friends of Sandwell Libraries, and we still have 19 libraries, the mobile service and home delivery service. I'm asking for a recognition to the volunteers at the several libraries across the borough. On behalf of the Federation of Friends of Sandwell Libraries, can I thank Sandwell Council for the maintenance of all the libraries and the information services. Last week, the Federation of Friends of Sandwell Libraries receive charitable status from the Charity Commission, which means they can help even more in the running of the local library services and make an even greater impact on the library services. Thank you.
Councillor Ian Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the leader to comment on the report? We've heard recently of many budget increases announced by the Tory government in regards to policing. I note from the report that the precept is at a level of nearly 19% increase. Could he comment on whether that is included in the £1 billion of extra funding? So in other words, that the council taxpayers all over the country are actually paying for this £1 billion of extra funding, and it's not coming from central government as they portray. So it's very topical that people will be having and expecting a 3.99% increase, but with the precepts in there, it would be a little bit more.
Any more questions? Leader, would you answer?
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Councillor Hughes. I think the work of the scrutiny board is absolutely crucial to this process, and I know it's very much valued by portfolio holders and by our executive officers, and it makes an important contribution to the ways in which we can give ourselves assurance that we are on course and achieving the maximum benefit from the resources that we have available to us. In respect of housing needs, of course, I think that long-term view is certainly the one where we need to, where in our, I mean, it's one of our key ambitions, and among our 10 ambitions, we are already committed to achieve the provision of housing and property and accommodation within this borough that meets the full range of housing needs. And I do think an important part of that process is planning for the future, taking as much advantages as we can in our design and our design processes and choices, and in terms of efficiency, and in terms of the implications of climate change and heat loss and so forth. All of those sorts of things that keep bills down, all of those ways we can plan, I think, for a better quality of housing in Sandwell, and that includes taking full account of our increasingly ageing population. But I also think we need to take account of the housing needs of the younger population. It's extremely important that young people that grow up like our very welcome elected members of the Youth Parliament, that in their future lives they will choose to remain in Sandwell and bring up their own families here. That's what I'd like to see happening, and I think we have a duty to all sections of our population at all ages, but certainly taking account of the needs of the elderly has to be built into that commitment we've already made to meeting the full range of housing needs in the future. In respect of the precept, of course, yes, there is an issue that our precept is not entirely, the precept in council tax is not entirely in our control. Those decisions are made as well by, on behalf of the fire authority and of police, and they're incorporated in this new arrangement. Any other precept that will be included, such as any proposition for a mayoral precept, is something that is not yet determined and would not apply in the coming financial year. So I think the reassurance is that yes, there are smoke and mirrors exercises that are done. We will try to be as transparent as we can about exactly how our council tax is constructed, and all of the material that goes out and accompanies those council tax demands will make that very clear to all of our citizens.
A named vote will now take place.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll follow the usual procedure. If I can call members' name, and then you indicate for if you wish to vote for the budget, against or abstain. Thank you. Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Ali. Councillor Alcock.
Councillor Allen. Thank you. Councillor Ashman. Councillor Bauer. Councillor Carmichael. Councillor Cherrington. Councillor Chidley. Councillor Costigan. Councillor Maria Crompton. Councillor Keith Davis. Councillor Pat Davis. Thank you. Councillor Sharon Davis. Thank you. Councillor Dalu. Councillor Downing. Councillor Eaves. Councillor Edis.
4.
Councillor Edwards. Councillor Ealing. Councillor Gavin. Councillor Elizabeth Giles. Councillor Lane Giles. Councillor Luke Giles. Councillor Galt.
4.
Councillor Hackett. Councillor Hadley. Councillor Hartwell. Councillor Linda Horton. Thank you. Councillor Shirley Hosell. Councillor Pam Hughes. Councillor Peter Hughes. Councillor Mushtaq Hussain. Councillor Mohammed Yazeen Hussain. Thank you. Councillor Dr. Yaron. Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Ian Jones. Councillor Olwyn Jones. Councillor Stephen Jones. Councillor Katoon. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Melia. Councillor Millard. Councillor Moore. Councillor Padder. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Piper. Councillor Priest. Councillor Barbara Price. Councillor Bob Price. Thank you. Councillor Ralph. Councillor Sanders. Councillor Shackleton. Councillor Shaheen. Councillor Singh. Councillor Tagger. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Trow. Councillor Underhill. Councillor Webb. Thank you. And Councillor White. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to say that's unanimous.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9, Council Tax Reduction Scheme. This report seeks approval to the Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 2019-2020. Can I invite the Leader of the Council to present the report and respond to questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the item that's been trailed twice so far in the meeting. It's the item that takes us back to the Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme for the coming financial year. The Council Tax Reduction Scheme is the one that provides crucial support to low-income families and our most vulnerable residents. And Sandwell, as has already been said, is now the only council in the West Midlands to provide up to 100% really support in the form of a discount in those circumstances. The Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme does require approval by full council, and it was approved at the January meeting. However, we've since had confirmation of the rates of welfare benefit payable from April of this year. That confirmation from government has only recently been received, and as a result we've identified that we just need to make a technical adjustment to the income bands that were included in the January report. So we clearly need to do that in order to protect our vulnerable residents and ensure there aren't any avoidable potential problems. So very simply, this report is therefore proposing a number of marginal changes to update those income bands as they're set out in Schedule 1 of this report, the effect of which will be to preserve that 100%, up to 100% discount arrangement that we originally agreed in principle at the last meeting. With those changes, I'm very, very pleased to formally move the report.
Are there any questions for the Leader? Are the recommendations approved? Is everyone in agreement? Anyone wish to object? Anyone wish to abstain? Agenda item number 10, Council Tax Award of Discount Policy. This report seeks approval to the Local Council Tax Award of Discount Policy for 2019 to 2020. May I invite the Leader of the Council to present the report and respond to questions.
I think I should apologise to our Youth Parliament representatives, because it's starting to look like the one-man show, isn't it? I do assure you that a lot of people have put a lot of time into thinking through these policies, and others will be speaking later on in the meeting. So this relates to the council tax discount policy, and the revenue and benefits policy framework was agreed by the Cabinet back in February, but this particular policy needs to be approved by the full council. The policy is reviewed on an annual basis and to make sure it's fit for purpose, but also because it has to conform with certain legislative changes. Legislation has now been passed which allows councils to increase the council tax charged on properties which have been empty on a long-term basis. This council already has a premium which it applies to council tax in the cases where properties have been empty for more than 2 years. But this proposal, the essential changes in the policy that's before you now, are to take advantage of the opportunity to reinforce the pressure to get many of these empty houses back into use. So the changes will be that from April this year, the premium that will be applied to homes that have been empty for more than 2 years will be increased to a council tax charge in total of 200%. From April of the following year, 2020, for homes that have been empty for over 5 years, we'll be introducing a council tax charge of 300%. And in the year following that, beginning April 2021, for homes that have been empty for more than 10 years, then the total council tax charge will be calculated at 400%. The implementation of those changes, of course, will minimise, we hope, the number of unoccupied properties in the borough. Empty properties are, of course, as we all know, a blight on local communities. If they're left empty for so long that they become derelict, they fall into disrepair. This policy will ensure that they're returned to the housing market as soon as possible, so that they can again be brought back into use as homes for local people and their families. I move the report.
Are the recommendations approved? Is everyone in agreement? Does anyone wish to object? Are there any abstained? Agenda item number 11, Annual Pay Policy Statement 2019. This report seeks approval to the Annual Pay Policy Statement 2019. Can I invite Councillor Trow to present the report on the Pay Policy Statement and respond to questions?
I think I'm getting bored with my own voice now. This is again a technical matter in that it's a very serious issue. It's about the pay policy statement for the council and the issues around the relationship between the highest paid in the council and the lowest paid workers. It's about the gender pay gap. But the decision that is required of the council at this meeting is the agreement that this now should be published, because that is the statutory requirement that before end of March, I think it is, each year, this data is published. So, just very quickly, I've said that the data relates to the remuneration of the chief officers, the remuneration of our lowest paid employers, and the relationship between the pay of chief officers and that of employees. And we're also required to publish the gender pay gap data. So the ratio at the moment between the lowest paid, the full-time equivalent rate, the lowest paid employee and the chief executive has narrowed from, I think it was 1 to 10 last year, now it's now down to 1 to 9. And the gender pay gap figure has also narrowed. I think that was 8.4% was the gender pay gap last year, and that's now narrowed to 7.1%. So there are many reasons for that, but it's important to just note that recent pay increases that we've agreed at a higher percentage for those on the lowest grades, many of whom are female, have had an effect on these figures and on these ratios. And also the fact that there's been a substantial improvement in the number of female employees who are now in more senior roles and the balance at that level. And I mean, obviously, though there are no grounds really for complacency, we're clearly moving in the right direction. So I'm very happy to formally move the report.
Are the recommendations approved? Sorry, is there anyone wishing to ask a question? No? Then are the recommendations approved? Is everyone in agreement? No. Is anyone against or wish to abstain? No. Agenda item number 12, Annual Report of the Planning Committee for 2018. Can I invite Councillor Sanders to present the annual report of the Planning Committee for 2018?
Madam Mayor, thank you very much indeed. I'll now endeavour to give the leader a break for a little while, so he can get his breath back and a little lie down. Madam Mayor, it's been another great year for planning. I'd like to thank the committee, especially the Vice Chair, Councillor Julie Webb, and the officers at Marby, led by Service Manager Mr John Baker. This council can deservedly have pride and gratitude in the work these officers have done for this council and for the people of the borough. Madam Mayor, in 2019, and I'll quote this from the report, in 2019, Madam Mayor, the Planning Committee will continue to add value to new development in Sandwell by ensuring the effective and efficient determination of planning applications in a fair, open and transparent manner. And I'll repeat the last point, a fair, open and transparent manner. Madam Mayor, I move the report and will take any questions.
Are there any questions for Councillor Sanders? Councillor Moore.
Not a question as such, Madam Mayor, but as a Cabinet Member for Planning and Regulatory Reform, I'd just like to reiterate my thanks to John Baker and all of the members of staff in that particular department. The Planning department at the Council continues to be one of the best departments in the region in terms of performance, and I think it's important that the Council recognise that and note that in the minutes.
Any more questions? Councillor Sanders, would you like to respond?
Madam Mayor, I can say, as I fully concur and endorse with what Councillor Moore has said, we are lucky to have such a team of great staff who work efficiently and effectively deliver award and successes to this council and borough year in and year out.
Agenda item 13. Section 41 reports and West Midlands Police and Crime Panel updates. Periodically, the Council asks those members who represent the Council and other regional bodies to provide us with an update on the issues facing those authorities. Today we will receive reports from Councillor Edwards, our West Midlands Fire and Rescue Authority representative, Councillor Alcock, our Transport for West Midlands representative, and Councillor Costigan, our representative on the West Midlands Police and Crime Panel. Can I invite Councillor Edwards to present the report on the West Midlands Fire and Rescue Authority?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first part of the report, Madam Mayor, as usual, deals with financial update. But I suppose the real story in this is that we've just gone into the last year of the current 4-year comprehensive spending review period. And in this final year, 1920, where we're just setting the budget for, we take another £1 million hit in government grant reduction. So that brings the total between 2016, 17 and 2019-20 to £10 million reduction because that's only part of the story, but because well before that, from 2011-12 up now to the current day, we've lost £38 million of government funding in that period. So it's been a long, hard slog, Madam Mayor, to try and maintain what we like to think and do believe is the best fire service in the UK. We increased council tax by 2.9%, the maximum we were allowed to, in order to protect the service as best we could. But in spite of that increase, it's still the lowest council tax for fire and rescue authorities in England. So we're still at the bottom of the league in what we ask people to pay, the top of the league in the service that we deliver. We're using £1 million of general balances this year again to support the budget. That can't continue indefinitely, and next year we'll need to reconsider that in the view of the level of general balances, which clearly are falling year on year. We've got a capital programme of £6.52 million. The lion's share of that goes on buying new fire appliances, buying fire engines, which are pretty important to us, and we're also clearly going to complete the rebuild of Aston Fire Station, circa another £2.1 million. That will also include the West Midlands Heritage Centre at Aston, as well as a local branch library for Birmingham City Council that we're working in collaboration with. And once again, I spell out in the report, Madam Mayor, that the whole of the capital programme is being funded by West Midlands earmarked revenue reserves. We've had no capital money from the government for some significant time, and we don't expect any time soon, so it's all being paid for from our earmarked revenue balances. On the second page, Madam Mayor, I'll just spell out there quickly the impact of these budget reductions, because they are severe. They have been consistent since 2011-12, and this year for the first time we are having to pre-state fire appliances off the run. As you know, you remember that we're using a scheme called voluntary additional shifts, where firefighters actually return to work in their time off, work additional shifts for payments, and that way we've kept the show on the road. We've kept trucks on the run and stations open and response times being met. We now can't afford to buy in as many voluntary additional shifts as we would want to do. We simply don't have the resources to do it because of the cuts that we've endured. So we'll be having less firefighters on duty at any one time, less fire appliances available at any one time, and that will have an impact on the service we deliver, particularly in our prevention work. We'll be doing circa 360 less safe and well checks every month across the West Midlands. Now we know they work, they help vulnerable people to stay safe, but we are going to have to reduce the numbers we do simply because we don't have people on duty, we don't have trucks on the road to deliver that level of service anymore. We are committed to maintaining one traditional fire engine, a pump rescue ladder, on every one of our 38 stations, crewed at 5, that will be maintained, but our second pump rescue ladders that we've got at Coventry, Highgate and Walsall fire stations will drop in numbers from 5 to 4, again as part of the effort to save money to set a balanced budget in line with the government reductions. So it's a difficult time. We are committed, and we've got the evidence from the officers of the service that we can, in spite of the reductions we make, still maintain our 5-minute target response time in our highest risk areas to incidents that threaten property and life. But clearly, if the government continue these cuts after 2020, and that's the bit we don't know, the government have just consulted marginally on what public spending might look like after 2020, but there's no detail on that. And I think given the history we've had of this government, we have to expect more of the same in the next period, and that will pose real difficulties for us in maintaining the level of service that we currently provide. It will mean more firefighters not on duty, more appliances not on the run, and that can only worsen the risk that people in the West Midlands face. On the brighter note, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, I've included quite a lot of detail there about developments in inclusive recruitment for as long as I can remember, and that's quite a long time. The UK Fire Service has been male, it's been white, it's been very stereotypical. We've struggled to recruit females, struggled to recruit members from our black and minority ethnic groups, and that's been a story that's been constant through 2, 3, 4 decades. West Midlands have finally broken through that barrier, and we're doing it by the use of positive action. So we're working with underrepresented groups before we get to the point of recruitment to draw as many people as we can from diverse communities into the process where the pre-application process. And we've been very successful at that in a range of ways. And the details of how that's been working are on the third page, Madam Mayor, where we suggest and we inform that since April 2018, using this positive action, we've employed 54 more recruits, more trainee firefighters since that date in April 2018. Of the 54, 46% are women, and 28% are from black and minority ethnic communities. Those figures are startling in their success. And the Home Office are very interested in the West Midlands and how we're managing this complete change in the dynamic of how we recruit. And we're happy to share that with them and with other services. But for the West Midlands, it means that we are moving finally towards a service that looks like the people it serves. And when a fire engine turns up and the crew jump off, they will look very like the communities they've gone to assist. And that is really useful in access, in communication, in education, in managing our prevention agenda. And it's also clearly fair that we make jobs available in the fire service to all people who live and work in the West Midlands. So that's something that we are very, very proud of. I've mentioned at item 4, Madam Mayor, the future governance. People are aware that we've been on a journey for some time to move away from the current system of governance for the fire service through the Fire and Rescue Authority into a relationship with the mayoral combined authority. And the development of that's been successful. We got to a point where we developed a draft order with the government that was viewed by this local authority back in September last year, and we approved that draft order for further work by the government, as did all the 7 local authorities. So we thought we were on stream to deliver this change this year. When that draft order got into the parliamentary process and it went to the Joint Committee on Statutory Instruments, they actually changed the order. They changed the order that all 7 West Midlands councils had looked at and signed up to support. And they changed it in a very difficult area. They actually watered down the responsibilities and accountabilities of the Chief Fire Officer and effectively said that the mayor in the West Midlands, whoever the mayor may be from time to time, could at his or her discretion decide that the Chief Fire Officer was the appropriate person to be delegated the accountabilities and responsibilities for the operational fire service. Clearly that puts a complete doubt over the whole order. And in fact the mayor in the future, whoever that may be, could in fact have delegated those responsibilities not to a Chief Fire Officer but to any other officer of the combined authority. Now that drove a coach and horses through the scheme that we had all agreed collectively in the West Midlands. That change, that redrafted order was rejected by 7 West Midlands councils when it came to us in January. And the discussion now is whether or not we can include those requirements about Chief Officer accountability and responsibilities within the constitution of the combined authority instead of being in the order that the government would have approved in the Commons. Clearly that's going to be a second best. The safest way of safeguarding Chief Officer responsibilities into the future is for it to be in a statutory order agreed by Parliament. Its second best is in a constitution agreed by the West Midlands Combined Authority, because that is more open to variation in the future. So that's now being looked at to see whether we can come up with a scheme that works in that way. That'll come back to the Combined Authority. The plan is on the 22nd of March. Combined Authority leaders collectively and individually will need to decide whether they approve that change in the constitution or not. They will have the opportunity, of course, to refer the whole thing back to the 7 local authorities. And I've already talked to the leader of Sandwell Council and some of the other leaders of the councils in the West Midlands. My view strongly is that it should come back to the 7 local authorities. We agreed the draft scheme last September. We should agree or not agree any variation to that in March 2019. So I think that will find its way back to us later on this year, and we'll look to see whether that it's appropriate to proceed on the basis of those changes to the Constitution, having lost the certainty of the government's order. There's a lot of detail about that in the report, Chair, because I just really wanted members to be aware of the detail around that. It is a key issue for the Fire and Rescue Service. The final issue, Chair, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, is the usual year-to-date performance. So performance for the current year to the end of January 19, you can see under the blue banner there. They are good. Good performance figures. Accidental fires in dwellings are slightly down, slightly below target, as are casualty numbers. And in fact, I put there that these are the lowest figures since 1998-99. Your copy may have a slightly different date. That's a typo. That should read lowest figure since 1998-1999. So the direction of travel is in the right direction in terms of performance. On the final page, you can see there in bold type, because I thought it was worth putting in bold type, that during this 10-month period, up to the end of January, 272 people in the West Midlands were either rescued or led to safety by firefighters from fires. And it's just worth considering that number. Real people, 272 people, actually brought out of usually burning domestic properties. And that's what the fire service do. There were 2,495 road traffic collisions, 2495, where 289 people were extricated from vehicles, trapped in vehicles and removed by the fire service. So very much a life-saving service. I've said at the bottom, I've mentioned that again, we do have this 5-minute target response time to our riskier areas. We want to maintain that. We're doing better than that in our really high-risk areas, and we're running at an attendance standard of 4 minutes 44 seconds. 4 minutes 44 seconds, which is an incredible response time given where we've been and the reductions we've had, and we believe that that remains the fastest response time by a fire and rescue service in the UK. I've mentioned that again, the uncertainty about 2020 and beyond. We do not need more cuts. We need some investment in the fire service. If that doesn't happen, then risk to life and property in the West Midlands will continue to increase, not decrease. And that's bad news for people in our communities, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I'll deal with any questions.
Are there any questions for Councillor Edwards? No? Can I ask Councillor Alcock to present the report on the transport for the West Midlands, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to extend my thanks to Councillor Roger Horton for his support and guidance he's given me since I joined the Transport Delivery Committee last summer. It's certainly been an interesting and rather rapid learning curve to such a broad subject area. And I'd like to extend best wishes for a speedy recovery from all his colleagues and friends at the Transport for West Midlands. Turning to the report you have tonight in your papers, the opening page really reflects my experience on the committee, in that a lot of emphasis has been placed on connectivity to the Commonwealth game venues and looking slightly further ahead to the HS2 terminal at Curzon Street in the Dickens area. What I'd like to do is just pull out a few highlights of the report, starting with the bus network. The patentage on the bus network is down by about 1.2% or 3 million journeys, which is somewhat disappointing as the bus network is the cornerstone for reducing congestion and pollution in the West Midlands. The Bus Alliance are currently looking at ways to improve this, and on the in the Bus Alliance achievement brochure details some of the actions they're currently taking. I will at this point mention Sprint. This is a scheme to introduce a tram-style bus that travels along designated bus lanes. The Phase 1 route, which will impact Sandwell, is the A34 Walsall to Birmingham route. This will give Great Barr residents access to a rapid transit option to Birmingham HS2 and also to Walsall circa 2022, which will be in time for the Commonwealth Games. Although a generally positive response was received from the public consultation, which I believe was 78% in favour. A Perry-Barr action group, supported by their local MP, are raising objections to this scheme on safety grounds and access to their properties. Moving on to rail, significant investments are planned in developing the West Midlands rail network in both services and infrastructure, especially the stations. A new working group has been set up to ensure effective collaborative working of all West Midland train operators, which has seen an increase of 4 million or 6% in patronage in the last year. Additional services will be available to Sandwell residents from May 19 timetable changes, with more direct connections to London, along with additional early and late service coverage on certain routes. However, in terms of station redevelopment, only Dudley Port is presently earmarked for improvements, and this is still in a study feasibility stage. The park and ride patronage figures for Sandwell are in the mid to high 90%. I've inquired at the Rail and Metro lead meeting about plans for expanding this capacity. I was informed, disappointingly, that there is no current plans to do so. However, I understand that a review is now being undertaken by officers and a report to the Transport Delivery Committee will be made in the summer. Moving on to the Metro. The Metro has been taken back into the direct management of the combined authority, and an extensive programme of both infrastructure and tram investment is planned for the next decade. The most significant of which to Sandwell is the 11-kilometre Wensbury to Brierley Hill extension. This programme is scheduled for completion in 2023, and the handover of the freight line from Network Rail is planned for later this year. Although this project is still considered to be on target for delivery, it should be noted that a funding shortfall of some 33 million or 10% exists, and options for filling this funding gap is currently being reviewed by the authority. The new management team have also undertaken legacy maintenance repairs and are resolving HR issues. A programme of staff recruitment is underway and has started to have a positive effect on the availability of the tram fleet. We have seen a slight increase in patronage over the last 12 months, especially in the latter months, by about 100,000. Sustainable travel. Pilot schemes for bike sharing are underway, much like they would call it the Boris Cycle Scheme in London, and other improvements are planned for cycle paths, especially along our canals. Designated cycle paths may also be developed alongside sprint routes. The Living Streets campaign continues with the aim of encouraging pupils to walk to school and reducing parking congestion, which I'm sure you all appreciate for councillors who have schools in your wards. Finally, the good news for Sandwell residents is that the M5 carriageway repairs are on target for completion in autumn 19. On this positive note, Madam Mayor, I move this report and will take any questions.
Are there any questions for Councillor Alcock? Councillor Ian Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We welcome the tram extension from Wensbury to Brierley Hill, but along that route, especially through my ward and others associated with it, there are going to be tram stops without any car parking facilities. Can you take it back so that we can have some resolution a long time before the actual completion date, so that residents in the area know what to expect in those? And I think the conversations are already being had, and that the highways in the borough also needs to be included on that. Otherwise we're going to have a log jam, which we've already got, of cars parked anywhere around the station. So it's just to take those observations back.
Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to congratulate Transport West Midlands for their strategic vision for bus, apparently. And this tells me that the aim is to have a world-class integrated, reliable, zero-emission transport system, and that they have a UK-leading low-emission bus fleet with zero-emission corridors in the most polluted areas. Now, really must congratulate them on this, because I know they're making progress. Because in Bearwood now, occasionally you see a bus that was actually manufactured in the 21st century. So clearly they've modernised the bus fleet somewhere in order to enable us to have the knackered old buses that they've taken off the other fleets to put in the Bearwood area. Now all this is progress. I would hope, I know this is a vision for the 21st century, I'd rather hoped to be able to live long enough to see clean buses actually drive down Bearwood Road, but I strongly suspect I won't.
Councillor Julie Webb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just an observation in the report. Can you take it back to your colleagues on the Transport Authority to consider parking, particularly in Cradley Heath? We have suffered from years and years of selfish commuters blocking up our side streets to the effect that people can't get off their properties, and it's not fair. We want more parking spaces provided. Take that back, please.
Councillor Hughes.
It's not a question to Councillor Alcock. It's actually a comment that might aid the question in relation to parking along the metro extension from Wensbury to Brierley Hill. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee at the Combined Authority is looking at the final business case tomorrow for that extension. So I can bring that particular issue up during the course of discussion. And I also believe the financial issues have been ironed out. So I think within the next couple of weeks the authority will be informed of that.
Any more questions? Councillor Alcock, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jones, I fully support your view. I've raised it myself, concerns about park and ride. I do use local facilities to get into Birmingham and to Wolverhampton, and it is very difficult at peak times to actually find somewhere to park. Councillor Pfeiffer, I'll take your comments back. Bus area is not my speciality. I've been shadowing Roger on rail and metro, and I will take your comments back. The parking issue again, I assume this is in areas which are not related to park and ride. I don't know whether we can look at anything with highways and that, and perhaps we'll have discussions with Councillor Sell. And Councillor Hughes, thank you for confirming that point. It was raised at the last TDC that there was a review underway, but there was no firm commitment to where the extra funding would come from. Thank you.
Can I invite Councillor Costigan to present her report on the West Midlands Police and Crime Panel, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. West Midlands Police and Crime Panel update, February 2019. The last report was September 2018. The panel of 12 councillors that represent 7 districts across the West Midlands, and there are also 2 independent members on that panel. The core work programme is to scrutinise and comment on the PCC's police and crime plan, to scrutinise and make recommendations on the policing precept and budget for policing within the power, to veto the proposed precept, also review the PCC's annual report. In October, the panel reviewed the PCC's annual report to examine the progress made towards its priorities and targets set out in the police and crime plan. In January this year, members questioned the PCC and Deputy Chief Constable Louisa Rolfe over the plans for local policing and improving public engagement. On point 5.5 on this report, the future of the police governance, the panel wasn't happy with the proposals with the transfer to the PCC's responsibilities to the West Midlands Mayor in 2020, as we are still questioning the consultation, and you can actually still go online to put your views onto that consultation. The panel asks about the increase also in violent crime, knife crime and vehicle thefts, and also challenges the PCC on the recent inadequate rating for the crime recordings and the Deputy Chief Constable on the resources for local neighbourhood policing. Just to add on a final note that a petition, which I've got here, just a copy, a petition is being posted out yesterday from myself as Cabinet Member for Public Health and Protection to Sajid Javid, calling for an increase in funding for policing, which we're desperate for. The petition enclosed and signed for is for 1,123 residents. And I move my report and take any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't remember when it was, but it was in the full council when you said that we had a problem with the 101s. My question is to yourself is, we've got a problem with the 101s because we've got a lack of police. What we really need to do is push for more policing. As crime goes up, it's all right having the 101s and the RADs, which is the 999s. We haven't got a problem with the 101s and the 999s. You ring up. If you haven't got a police officer to attend, then you have a problem with the 101s and the 999s. So what we need to do is really push for more policing in our street in Sandwell.
Any other questions? Councillor Moore.
Really building on from Councillor Hadley's point, I wonder if the Cabinet Member would like to condemn the Prime Minister's comments today that there's actually no link between police officer numbers and crime. I mean, try telling that to the people in Hateley Heath who have one allocated police officer and one allocated PSSO to police an area of 6,000 houses. It's an absolute disgrace.
Councillor Ian Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And an incident which happened just last week where late at night a public house was attacked and they had to have the police to come from Brierley Hill to Wednesbury, and they waited 3 quarters now for any assistance. So again, we are in dire straits with the police, and again, many of us know when we had neighbourhood teams which were winning national awards nationally regarding that. I hope the increase in the precept may help to some of those neighbourhood improvements that we all require.
Any more questions? Councillor Costin, would you like to respond?
Yeah, totally agree with everything that's been said. Obviously, when we sit on this panel, it's not just for Sandwell, obviously, it's across all the boroughs. And we all feel exactly the same. We all feel really angry that the fact that at some point, we've all probably called 101, and sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't, and they do prioritise. We have visited as a panel to Lloyd House, and we've actually seen it at first hand, how they do prioritise. And I can tell you, it looks like the online reporting seems to be gaining momentum, basically, because when I was there, I could see people emailing from the phone, and they was actually responding quicker to that. So it's just this 101 and 999. It looks like social media is probably taking over by emailing with the issue, and then they're deciding whether they come out or not. But yeah, I mean, this petition that is going, it was sent out yesterday. Hopefully Tricia's sent it out. But yeah, let's fingers crossed that we do get some responses, because it's clearly stating that we do need more police on our streets. And I'll do everything I can at the meetings I attend. Thank you.
Councillor Ian Jones.
Yeah, just a comment on what Costigan said about using social media and that. A recent report of the digitisation across the nation are leaving many millions of pensioners who don't use social media at a disadvantage. So again, whilst that, pensioners like to use 999 to respond, and again, we need to make sure that we don't disenfranchise many millions of people across the country by going down a route of digitisation.
Agenda item number 14, vacancies on committees and boards. Can I invite Councillor Priest to advise on any vacancies arising on committees and boards following the appointment of the leader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no vacancies to advise upon, and recommend this report be deferred.
Thank you. Agenda item 15, minutes of the Cabinet. The Cabinet has met 4 times since the last ordinary meeting of the Council. The minutes of those meetings are before Council tonight. Can I ask the Leader of the Council to present the minutes of the Cabinet and receive questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to formally move the minutes. Most of the items where they required discussion in the Council have been dealt with at this meeting. So I'd just like to formally move the Cabinet minutes for the 30th of December. That's not right. Sorry. Sorry. No, the date's right. Formally move the minutes at 15A, 15B, 15C and 15D on the Council agenda.
Are there any questions? Councillor Julie Webb.
Madam Mayor, are we dealing with Cabinet on the 20th of February?
Yes, we are.
I'm concerned regarding item 21/19, emergency accommodation. I'm really concerned that we are expecting our young people who are desperate for a crash pad to be housed in these hotels. There's a safeguarding issue there. You don't know who are in these hotels. And I'm really concerned for the safety of our young people being put in these places.
Are there any other questions? Would the Leader respond, please?
I take that point, and I undertake that we'll look again at exactly how that scheme is operated and assure ourselves that there are no safeguarding issues arising as a result, unless the Cabinet Member for Housing wants to contribute to that.
Yes, thank you. We are currently looking at alternatives at the moment to bed and breakfast, but in the meantime we are going to have to use these in the short term. Thank you.
Agenda item 16, minutes of the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board. Can I invite Councillor Peter Hughes to present the minutes of the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board held on the 9th of January and 12th of February?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to present the minutes of the 9th of January and 12th of February 2019. As you will see, both relate to the budget, both in terms of budget monitoring and the budget for 2019-20, and it shows the extent of questioning that took place in both meetings. I'll table them and would take any questions.
Are there any questions? No? Agenda item 17. Minutes of the Audit and Risk Assurance Committee. Can I invite Councillor Priest to present the minutes of the Audit and Risk Assurance Committee meeting held on the 10th of January?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I formally move the minutes of the Audit and Risk Assurance Committee held on the 10th of January 2019, and I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions? No? Agenda item 18, minutes of the General Purpose and Arbitration Committee. Can I invite Councillor Dalu to present the minutes of the General Purpose and Arbitration Committee held on the 4th of March 2019?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the minutes of the General Purposes and Arbitration Committee which held on 4th of March. Take any question.
Are there any questions?
Madam Mayor, can I make clear, please, that the proposed changes to polling stations in Bristol Ward and Wensbury South Ward require an approval by the Council, so these minutes need, or those items on these minutes need your approval rather than simply being for noting. So you will need to ask members, Madam Mayor, if they agree those changes.
Do you agree those changes?
Aye.
Okay. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I close the meeting.
Please stand for the Mayor to exit the chamber.